Hi, this is Frederick Janson, and this is the fourth part of the Change, Value, Behavior, and Performance series, which addresses the limitations affecting the valuation of change, specifically words, culture, and social conditioning. The first example of the flawed subjective values we give objective change when employing words is as follows. When a lion kills a zebra, is it true that the killing of the zebra by the lion is good for the lion? It is true that the killing of the zebra is good for the lion, as the killed zebra provides the lion with the food it requires to survive. However, is it not also true that the death of the zebra is bad or toxic to the zebra? It is true that the killing of the zebra prevents the zebra from surviving, which is bad for the zebra, at the same time that it is true that it is good for the lion to kill the zebra. Because both valuations of this one change, the killing of the zebra by the lion, are opposites and both true, a contradiction or paradox exists, negating any functional or objective use of the words good or bad when providing a single value to a change that results in one living thing killing another living thing. This is one example of the flawed subjective values we give objective change when using words like good, bad, nourishing, or toxic. The second example of the flawed subjective values we give objective change when employing words examines the word love. The meaning of the word love means something different to a baby, child, teenager, adult, and senior, based on each individual's unique experiences with the word love. Some people are loved too much, other people are loved just right, some people are not loved enough, and other people are abused instead of loved. Accordingly, no person has the same meaning for the word love, as no person has the same experiences with the word love. The same can be said for every other word, as no person has the same experiences or exposure to the same words. Therefore, no two people value change in the same manner, as no two people have the same exposure and experiences with the same words used to value change. The third example of the flawed subjective values we give to objective change when employing words examines the identity of a fresh, brave pea versus the identity of a soup, both of which are in the process of changing the other. Is the pea a pea, or is the pea a soup? The correct answer is that the pea is both a pea and a soup, two different valuations which occur at the same time. However, the soup is also a pot of soup, and the pot of soup is also part of a kitchen, and the kitchen is part of a house, and the house is part of a neighborhood, and the neighborhood is part of a state, and the state is part of a country, and the country is part of a planet, and the planet is part of a solar system, which is part of a cluster of galaxies, which is part of a supercluster, which is part of a filament, which is part of the observable universe, which is part of everything and or gods. In summary, the pea is part of all of these things, or everything, and at the same time, and as such is not a single change agent that has a single value. The same is true for any one change or perceived object or group of objects that can be provided a single value with a single word, for example, me, or upside down, we. If you take a moment to think about it, we and me have never been physically, mentally, and or spiritually the same, as every moment we and me change, and yet we and me retain unique identifiers, we and me, regardless of never being the same, which is odd and confusing. Moments before the egg and sperm fused to make your first cell, you were actually two separate living things, a sperm cell and an egg cell. Or more accurately, there were two very different manifestations of you, one of which, the egg cell, developed long before the other manifestation of you, the sperm cell. Accordingly, you existed in one place, at one time inside your mother's egg cell, and then a little later, you existed in another place, in another time, inside your father's sperm cell. Yet you existed at the same time, in two different places, in two different times. A little later, the two of you, in two places, would fuse to form one of you in one place, forming your zygote or first cell, which would later divide into two of you again, but two totally different versions of you, and would later divide into 10 to 90 trillion of you, and upon your death, most of you would die until just one of you, your last cell, existed, and a little later that one cell would pop, returning you to everything, also you. Accordingly, single valuations of change using unique identifiers, words, numbers, or sounds, are flawed because everything changes too much for one thing to be unique for too long, and every whole is composed of smaller wholes. The fourth example of the flawed subjective values we give to objective change when employing words examines the words big and small, and other similar words such as long and short, tall and petite, fat and skinny, dark and light, fast and slow, strong and weak, young and old. The word small can be used to describe the size of the house I live in. However, as there are smaller houses than the house I live in, the word large can also be used to describe the house I live in. Accordingly, my house is both large and small, and at the same time. As I walk around my large and small house, I go for a short walk, but because some walks are shorter, I go for a long walk at the same time. Accordingly, I go for a short and long walk around my small and large house, respectively. I walk around the house very fast because I am young, skinny, very tall, and I have a strong stride. However, as there are faster walkers, who are younger, thinner, and taller, with a stronger stride, I go for a short and long walk around my large and small house in a slow and fast manner because I am old, fat, and short, and have a weak stride, all things being relative. On my slow and fast and short and long walk, I develop a dark tan, and this is good because I'm normally pale and need melanin. But the more sun I take in, the better chance I have of developing skin cancer, which is bad. However, as some people develop much darker tans, I barely develop a tan at all, while simultaneously developing a very dark tan, as some people have light skin by comparison. Employing numbers to these descriptive or qualitative measuring words used to value change wouldn't better the conflict inherent in their valuation, discussed in a later section. Who teaches us the words we use to cleave continuous everything into discrete or non-continuous words that have similar, relative, and/or opposite meanings? Who socially conditions us to identify and judge the small parts of the whole and the similar, relative, and/or conflicting relationships of the small parts? The answer, of course, are social groups, our families, schools, churches and temples, corporations, the media and entertainment industries, lawyers and judges, police and members of the military, members of Congress, the leaders of our nation, collectively our society. Different social groups teach different words, which have the same, similar, different, and/or conflicting meanings relative to other social groups. As babies, we all start off with no words, and we tend to accept the words we learn from our social groups, and their taught meanings as true, even though their meanings may be false or true and false. Is it true that it is bad for a lion to eat a zebra? It is seemingly true, as the zebra doesn't want to die and shouldn't be killed by the lion. Is it false that it is bad for a lion to eat a zebra? It is seemingly false, as the lion wants to live, and should kill the zebra to survive. Is it true that it is polite to burp after a meal? It is seemingly true if you come from Chinese culture, where it is very polite to burp after a meal, to show respect for the delicious meal that was prepared for you. Is it false that it is polite to burp after a meal? It is seemingly false if you come from a European culture, where it is never polite to burp, especially after a meal. Is it true that women should dress all covered up with a veil and expose only their eyes? It is seemingly true if you come from some Islamic cultures, and it is seemingly false if you come from some parts of the world, like Europe or Australia, where it is perfectly acceptable for women and men to walk naked or near naked on a beach with only sunglasses on. Is it true that my worldview is the only legitimate worldview? It is seemingly true that my worldview is the only legitimate worldview, as it is the only view I have, and I would be very threatened if I had a false view of the world. Is it false that my worldview is the only legitimate worldview? It is seemingly false that my worldview is the only legitimate worldview, as I have only learned how to view the world in a very limited manner, and there are nearly 7 billion other ways to view the world.